Welcome back to the Our Town podcast. Today we have Vance Lancaster and Ronan Lancaster with ContainUrSpace, where they do ADUs, tiny homes. Do you do tiny homes too?
Yeah. By definition, I think a lot of people see tiny homes as being something on wheels. Right?
Okay.
So we're not doing that currently. It's not that I won't, but that's not real. We're usually more general, construction out of the ground rather than something that's mobile.
Okay. So the tiny homes are the ones that they're just wheeling in. They're making them in a manufacturing place, and they're just dropping them into the spots.
Typically, yep.
Okay.
Yep, and there's permits that are avoided and other things with that route. Ours is more of a standard construction process.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so with all the changes that they're doing with the permit policies and stuff like that, so this is becoming a bigger and bigger thing. Obviously.
Definitely, yeah. It is. It's anything under 750 square feet, and a lot of I don't know the entire state law, but I know for instance in Placer County, anything under 750 square feet, you don't pay any impact fees.
Really?
So that's a huge delta right there. So
Yeah.
you can, and then if you don't have any connection fees. This is one of the big questions that's asked of us at home shows or wherever we show up is, what's a permit cost? And it's really anywhere in Placer County or Roseville, even for instance, you could have the same dwelling, and if you don't have connection fees, it could be $2,500, and if you have connection fees, it could be $20,000.
Really?
For your permits. Yeah.
Wow. And that's if you just go over 750 square feet.
Well, even at 750 square feet, you're looking at a range like that, and again, the big range there is the connection fees. If you've got sewer, water, any utility connections, then you're going to pay higher fees. But under 750 square feet, you don't pay the impact fees, and that would be fire, park impact fees. There's a bunch of them in Roseville that, for instance, as an example, and we're doing work in Napa and Placer County, so we're kind of learning a lot about the individual, not only city but county. Napa, we're dealing with city and county over there on projects. So permits is a big question that comes to us, and there's a lot of variables involved with it, so it's hard to really pin something down for people and give them. Usually it's going to be getting to the city or county and just asking questions about your particular property.
So give me a little bit of your background and how you got started and how you've transformed over into this space.
I've been in the construction space my entire adult life. So I've run a construction company. I started my commercial company when I was about 22 or 23 years old. And so I've just just wrapped up our 30th year in that company. And so as we've spent the last 15 years preparing to transition to new leadership. You got to get that far in front of it, in my opinion. So my goal was to be able to roll out at 30 years and do something else, and I've got a lot of energy still and a lot of interest. So we decided to get into this container building business just kind of as a hobby, and alongside this whole ADU movement has been growing for several years. I feel like I'm kind of late to the game actually, but
Yeah.
So it's just something that interests me, and he's interested in it, and this, it gives us an opportunity to work together. I mean, being able to work with my kids is awesome.
Yeah.
So I've decided that this is something I'd like to do as much for fun as a business to run, and it just helps us start to develop some other revenue streams and income streams.
Yeah. And Ronan, what are you doing for the company?
So I primarily am focusing on design and stuff, working directly with clients, kind of in the pre-construction phase of things, just kind of making sure their vision is coming to life with whatever we're going to provide. So that's kind of where I'm at most of the time, is design and working with architects and stuff like that.
Nice. So are you going out and saying where they're wanting to put it and kind of helping them with that and coming up with the looks of the whole thing and
walking
them through
all of that pre-construction coordination and stuff? Most people don't have that ability to envision what you're going to give them, so that's where I spend a lot of time, is trying to create that picture for them.
Yeah. Do you use a specific software or anything for that?
I don't. I don't have those computer and architectural skills yet, so I just kind of work directly with the architects that we use, kind of communicate between the two.
Now you have the container, so you were just talking about before all this started, the container project that you're working on. Tell me about that a little bit.
So we had some folks approach us at a home show that we were attending. I've got a couple of container builds that we were able to just deliver to a home show, and they're display units, you know, and they basically showcase what can be done and what our particular style is. We have kind of a contemporary style with some classic elements, you know.
Yeah.
So we had some folks approach us, and they have a project up at Lake Almanor that they wanted to put a vacation home on, and so it's been kind of in the works for 2 years with them, because they had a big fire go through that area, you know, a little over a year ago, I guess it was. And so, yeah, we've just been going through the design process with them. They've got a very narrow, kind of interesting lot. It's right on the shoreline. And so accessibility is a little difficult. So there's some factors there that had to be considered. They already had a tiny home on the property that it was just too tiny. You know, they wanted something that they could bring the grandkids up and, you know, spend the weekend or spend a week at the lake. So we went into design phase, and through various iterations came up with something that fit the property. And yeah, it turns out that it's going to be 5 containers and some conventional frame as well incorporated into it. 3 bedroom, 2 bath.
Really?
Vacation home right on the shoreline. Yeah.
So now I know I can't finance something like that through normal financing. How are they just paying cash for it?
I think they're paying cash for it. Yeah, mostly out of pocket, and they've got some other properties that they may be leveraging. I'm not sure exactly how they're coming up with the funds for it.
If you ever find out, let me know.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd like to find that out.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I as we get to know each other more, come up with ways for financing, because that's another big question that we get asked is how can I finance, whether it's a container build in general or an ADU or what have you, you know. And there's some great resources out there now. I've listened to a few webinars and such. Placer County's got a great webinar that folks can, you know, Google and find, and there's a lot of good information about financing your ADU at least.
Yeah.
You know, and ways of doing that. Sometimes it's a bit more creative than just construction loan, you know.
Yeah. So. Now, on these ADUs, you are putting them in. Is there a minimum setback that you have to have with the homes, or are they just kind of? I've heard they're giving them out like candy. So.
Well, it feels like that. Yeah, I think when it gets down to it, there's oftentimes some hurdles you got to get over, but typically, the law is 4-foot setbacks off the property line. There could be various reasons that's not possible, whether it's something to do with the property itself, something to do with an HOA requirement. I think mostly the HOA requirements have been squashed because of the law in California, but typically it's 4 foot. So yeah, you can get, and I've looked at container build ADUs right up on the property line, just
really
zero setback. Oakland and some of the more dense areas, Berkeley, they're doing them right on the lot line, and you just have to put in a proper firewall.
Yeah.
You know, and the same goes for anything that you get too close to the property line. There's requirements if you're within so many feet of another dwelling or building, and then the property line as well.
Now, on those container builds, how are you running, like, what's the size of one of those containers first off? Like,
so if you're doing just a typical container, I think the minimum for an ADU is 150 square feet, if I'm not mistaken. So a typical shipping container is 8 by 20, so it's 160 square feet. It's a pretty tight space.
Yeah.
When you talk about utility hookups, I'm trying to understand your question there.
Yeah, so that's what I was wondering. So if you have your normal typical container size, and then do you have to like skim the walls like to run all the electricity, or are you running it on the outside?
No, you can do stuff on the exterior of the container. Everything we've done so far leaves the exterior of the container intact. I mean, that's kind of the architectural or aesthetic feature that people like to see. So everything we do is on the inside. So we're running I like to build with non-combustible materials, metal studs, for instance. So we use a metal stud interior fur wall. that gives us a place to run electrical, and if there's any plumbing, and then we use a spray foam insulation to get high enough R value.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
same
otherwise
with
it'd be an oven in there.
right, exactly. That's the thing with a shipping container. Yeah, if you're not insulating it on a hot day, it gets pretty darn warm in there. Yeah.
So putting together, if you were gonna do, like you were mentioning earlier, you got a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom out of 5 containers.
Right, 5 containers, and then, like I said, there's a conventional framing element too to create this big open family room space that's in the
Wow.
dwelling. And it's not a huge house. It's less than 1,200 square feet.
Yeah. Now these containers, where do they come from?
Right out of the shipyards.
Really, just right out of the shipyards?
Yeah, we typically are buying one trip, and I like to use the high cubes just because it gives me a little bit more ceiling space. If I'm dropping the ceiling in bathrooms and stuff, it gives me still good ceiling heights. You
Yeah.
know, I'm getting minimum of 8-foot ceilings in them.
Wow. And then on the ADUs themselves, what is the typical size people are looking for on those?
Oh, so we're talking to people at home shows for anything from 420-ish square feet, all the way up to, I mean, we're looking at one in Granite Bay that's 1,200 square feet.
Okay.
You know? The max for an ADU is 1,200 square feet.
Okay, that turns into a house.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I listened to a guy talk about that's doing a cool project down in Palm Springs, something I've been wanting to do. He's turning basically an old trailer park into tiny home community, you know.
Okay.
And he said something about, yeah, we're putting in 800 square foot tiny homes, and I was like, 800 square foot? That's just the house I grew up in. We didn't call it a tiny home.
Yeah,
then, you know?
yeah.
So yeah.
If you look some of the homes in Oak Park, the little 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom.
Exactly.
I think those are all right around that 850 was like the big one.
Right,
You know,
right,
so I
yeah.
totally get it. And there was
Yeah.
like 5 kids in that house.
Right.
So. Now, what is it typically costing? Is there a big cost difference between the container and between just the ADU?
No, you know, that's one thing that people ask me about too is, oh, is it going to be a lot less expensive to build with a container? No, it's just a different type of construction. You know,
Okay.
it's just something different, neat. The price per square foot is usually at the end of the day about the same. You know, and if you're doing permits, that's all about the same. But yeah, the price per square foot is just about the same. In fact, sometimes I think I might be able to build conventionally a little cheaper.
A little bit cheaper. Now, what is the kind of average cost that people are spending to put one of these in? And I'm not talking like Granite Bay. Obviously, they're going to be spending a lot more,
Right.
But on average.
So I would say right now, if I was to quote somebody, I'm telling them plan on spending about $400 a square foot.
Okay.
And I remind them that, you know, you're packing a lot of stuff into a pretty tight space. Usually when you're talking about a, say, 750 square foot build, you've still got a full kitchen, you've got a full bath. The last one we were actually getting ready to permit, and the family had a loss in the family, and they kind of changed their direction. But this one was going to be ADA compliant, so they
Oh, wow.
we were doing a wheelchair wheel-in shower and all kinds of stuff. And that's, you know, these days probably the number one reason people want to put in an ADU is for elderly care.
Yeah.
You know, we've got somebody in the family that's getting older and they need to be close to the family, and we don't want to put them in an expensive home, you know. Yeah, when I'm talking to folks right now, I'm quoting about $400 a foot, and that's all in. That's from design through turnkey.
Okay, that's
You know.
plans, everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, have you thought about doing the kind of drop-in type stuff? Have you looked at doing a manufacturing facility?
Definitely, that's exactly what we intend to do. Yeah,
Okay.
we just need to get to that point where we've got the certifications to be able to complete a build in a facility,
Yeah.
and then assemble it in its 2 or 3 or however many piece parts on the site.
So in that case, you'd be looking at kind of just laying a pad and dropping it on, and then
Exactly.
it'd be like buying a tough shed at Home Depot.
Funny, I see people that talk about that. I bought a tiny home at Home Depot for 15 grand. No, you bought a shed at Home Depot for 15 grand. You got a long ways to go before it's considered a home.
Yes.
A tent, if you're considering a tent a
Yeah.
home, well, you've just taken a step up with your new shed, but yeah.
Yeah.
You got a ways to go there.
So if you were to do the manufacturing thing, would you have, let's say, kind of cookie cutter, hey, we've got this 700 square foot, we've got this, and then it's just like options, almost like they're buying a car?
Exactly, yeah, that would be our intention, yeah.
Okay.
And that would be definitely more about the pre-manufactured complete units. You know, what we're doing right now is almost everything we're doing is custom one
Okay.
off, you know. We don't even, you know, there are some ADU builders out there that have fixed plans. They're still doing site-built stuff, but it's, you know, you choose either plan A, B, or C, and this is the price for plan A, B, or C. We're very well versed in plan A, B, or C, and you get one of the three, and off we go. Everything we're doing right now is custom. We're either designing to match the house that's, you know, existing, we're designing for a certain lifestyle or use. In some cases, it's more or less being used as an art studio rather than a living space, but when the family comes around, it's now a living space. So that's one of the things we talk about with clients is what's the intended use, and then we go from there. You know, feasibility, how it's going to fit on the property, where your utility connections are, all of that.
Now you're going down to Napa as well. So where do you guys? What areas do you service?
So, well, we've got one as far north as that Lake Almanor project. We've got stuff going in Napa. I would just say generally Northern California, and I wouldn't even mind. My commercial construction company is all over California and Northern Nevada, and so I'm familiar with this general territory in Northern California and Nevada.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind at all doing business in Nevada with these as well. California is where the laws have really been, you know, pushing the ADU movement. Here we are. Northern California, I would say, is you know, probably anything north of Stockton.
Yeah.
You know.
It's kind of funny with this. Everybody's always saying that the housing shortage, and they let this go, but then they still have all these like regulations and holding the builders back from building. But then they just California rolled out this program where they were giving everybody 20% down to buy a home, which even made the housing shortage even worse. People were just scrambling. They literally gave them 20% for a down payment. So it just makes it worse. Instead of taking that and just loosening the regulations on the builders,
Right.
are you part of any organizations that you see that are trying to fight all that?
Well, I am part. Our company is part of an organization called CalPASC, and they are very much involved with construction law and what's happening in the construction industry. But on the ADU side, from my perspective, it's gotten a lot easier over the last couple of years. You know,
Yeah.
like we talked about, the laws have really been tweaked to try to push this movement, it feels like. And you know, Placer County has gotten much easier. I mean, they have an ADU specialist on staff. That's all she does is
Wow.
deal with ADUs, you know. So it's definitely gotten easier, but this is California and there's still a lot of red tape. You know, and,
Yeah.
and it's not the same from one city to the next or one county, you know, you just kind of have to learn your way through it.
Yeah.
As you walk in and say, this is what we want to do, you know, point me in the right direction here. And most places we go are fairly receptive and friendly about pointing you in the right direction and giving you the assistance you need to
make it happen.
Yeah, make it happen, exactly.
So where do you see, how long before you see yourself being able to start doing those drop-in type things, or kind of growing the company to where it could start doing that?
Yeah, it's possible that we could be doing that in a year. What the biggest thing is just getting certified so that I can get through the process without the typical inspector, you know, having to come to a site. When we're manufacturing in a facility, we've got to be able to get through the build and have processes in place to be able to check all the boxes that need to be checked so that we know, and the city or counties that we're delivering to know that we're building something that meets code.
In that case, so that just kind of reminds me, if you're building on site, you have to have the building inspector come by and all that kind of stuff. But if you're building in a manufacturer, do you have to have an inspector come on each one of those manufactured homes?
No, not necessarily. You have to have processes in place that define how you're pushing a product through the facility and you know, like I said, there's a list of checks and balances I think that you have to follow. My shop, on the commercial side, for instance, is an AISC certified shop. So with steel fabrication, we're capable of following our own procedures.
Yeah.
And it minimizes the amount of inspections, private inspections that we have to
Perfect.
have. Yeah, I believe it's the ICC certification that we are looking for to be able
Okay.
to be able to manufacture in a facility without the typical building inspections. But I'm just getting into
Okay.
that stuff, so yeah.
No worries.
Mhm.
Now, when it comes to the container type things, you guys can do all that stuff right now. You're already building them now.
Yes.
Are you taking on a bunch more projects in that area?
Definitely,
Okay.
yeah, definitely. We haven't been real heavy on the advertising I've just kind of let it come to us, and we've just kind of been feeling our way through it. So I think, you know, this was kind of the year that Ronan and I decided we'd try to put a little bit more of a concerted effort towards pushing this business and getting
Yeah.
some advertising going. We've got a sales associate that we work with that helps us with sales, who's, you know, again, kind of travels the same geographic areas that we want to work in Northern California. So yeah, we're getting going.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
So this goes out to quite a few people. If people wanted to track you guys down, who would they contact first? How would they find you? What would be their first steps?
Sure. One way to contact us is just we have a very simple website set up. It's ContainUrSpace, ContainUrSpace.com. They can go there, and there's some contact information there. They can reach out to us.
Okay.
And we'll respond just as quickly as we can and connect with them and start asking questions about what they're trying to do.
Okay.
And try to steer the project however they need it steered.
Okay, and then we'll also
Pretty
have
flexible.
all of their contact information down below. We'll have the website, any salesperson's phone number or anything like that?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I'd say get to the website and, yeah, then we'll connect with folks from there.
You got it, you
Mhm.
got it. Perfect, well, thank you guys so much for coming in.
Mhm.
Seriously appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see what you guys do over the next year.
Yeah, thank you.
You got it, thanks.
All right.